And we are live. I'm Adam. This is Highly Articulated. We're going to talk some toys today. Happy Canada Day. Happy 4th of July. Whatever sort of version of the weekend you get this weekend. I hope you're having a good time and enjoying yourself. Very quickly, just a shout out to eCollectables.ca. Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Wave 3 is now available for pre-order from eCollectables.ca. They will be getting their Wave 2 figures in stock very, very soon as well. I was speaking to Jason, every day, but I was speaking to him yesterday, and he said that the eCollectables order is packed and will be shipped this week. So hit Mike at eCollectables up for Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Wave 2 stuff. Get your pre-order in for Wave 3. All that G.I. Joe classified goodness is in. One of my personal favorites, Chester Cheetah, is up for pre-order as well. So get over to eCollectables.ca and get some toys. I have a very special guest today, a fellow toy collector, a fellow YouTuber, a fellow father, Don from Toy Domination. What's going on, my friend?
What's up, man? Just back here eating some popcorn while I wait.
Just having a little snack?
Yeah,
a very little snack.
A very teeny snack. I gotta watch my calorie count, man. I'm over 40. Catches up to you.
It's popcorn. You can eat as much as you want, guilt-free, right? Isn't that's what my wife tells me.
Oh, really? She's setting you up, man. Hey, Adam, thanks for having me on here, man. I've been dying to come on your show forever.
I know. We've been trying to coordinate it. I was on your channel, what was it? A couple months ago almost now, I feel like.
Yeah.
Time flies, hey? It's one of those things. Summer hits too, and then you got kids. You're probably out of school now. My kids are out of school now.
Life. Oh man, they always get in the way of my hobbies. Yeah.
Isn't that the way, man? Isn't that the way? Anyway, we're going to talk about some toys. We're going to talk about some toy news, and then we're going to chat a little bit about our kids, I guess, indirectly. Yeah. We're going to talk about passing collecting on to our kids. We got some opinions, so we're going to share them. But first, we're going to share our pickups this week. Why don't you go first? What did you get?
So I
this week or recently?
Okay, yeah. So right before I went to Joe Fest back at the beginning of, good grief, was that the beginning of June? Oh man.
And then I went to go.
Yeah. So I haven't caught it up, but I finally picked up this like tracksuit bad guys. Mm-hmm. Super fun with the 3 heads, man. Tracksuit Mafia. I haven't seen the show yet, but I was like, I gotta have a goon in a tracksuit there, man. And then after Joe Fest, I came back home, and then my family and I went to Georgia together. So went to Georgia by myself, drove back, picked up the family, went to work for 2 days, drove back to Georgia again, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had a vacation out there, stayed in the cabin, super fun. But there was a toy and comic shop nearby, and I picked up this really cool Overwatch figure. I don't know, but she's really fun because she's bright orange. I'm like, well, that's a cool pilot. And she's got this given the gun hand. I'm like, that's awesome, man. And she's got kind of like a quirky Jubilee wink head. I'm like, this character is awesome. So we picked her up for a pilot. And then we found this little dude with 4 arms, Star Wars, for just a couple bucks. He was like $4, something like that. I was like, this guy's awesome, man. So those are my 4-inch collectibles. And then I don't know if I want to show this figure on this channel because I'm afraid this may go into a deep dive here, but I did pick up my first AWOC figure at Joe Fest. And I haven't shown this or anything on my IG yet. I got this for Tristan, my oldest son, because he loves playing with Mythic Legions and we have adventures, and he also is a huge animal nut. So I'm like, man, this is a no-brainer, man. So I scooped up 2 of these guys from the booth, and they loved them. I met Jason and Blank and the other guys, Jeremy and Jason. Sorry, yeah. So I met both them. Super nice. And these are really, really fun. We have been having a blast playing with these guys with Mythic Legion. So love these guys. Can't wait.
You don't just have to take my word for it.
They're cool,
Dom
man.
agrees.
they're very so here's the difference. Not to side rail this. They are very action figure-y as opposed to Mythic Legions, if that makes sense. This is more of a toy, and so is the finish a little more of a toy. And so I'm good with that. But for people who steer away from this and only want Mythic Legions, I would understand why they would. But for me, these can blend in. I'm okay with that. Like I can bend. Same thing with Marvel Legends. Marvel Legends look more toy than they do like Mezco, right? So, but I'm impressed. I'm getting some more here.
Yeah, that's we won't go too crazy because
no, I get it. Yeah.
Because if you want more AWOC content, feel free to check out the rest of the videos on my channel.
Do you talk AWOC?
Once in a while.
Huh, weird.
But they do have a like the figures themselves are a little cartoony, on their own, but you can really sort of blend them in, whether it's Mythic Legions, whether it's Marvel Legends. They kind of fit just about anywhere.
That's how I feel about the armies of Ashmore dinosaurs. They're much more bright and vibrant, and their faces are a little bit like if you were to animate. Oh, heck, they are animated with their illustrations, right? They are a little more cartoonish, but I like that aesthetic, and my brain can bend it just enough to be like, well, they're just a little bit different from the darker shades. I'm okay with that. I can fit them in. So
I've seen people too. People that sort of err on the side of more realistic stuff, basically just do like a black wash on them.
Yeah, that'll dull it down. Yep.
And instantly they look far more realistic. The design of the face still is a little cartoony, admittedly, but yeah, they look phenomenal with 5 minutes of very basic crafting skills. Like, you don't even have to be a customizer. You can get them with a black wash.
Washes are like the secret gem to customizing. You know what I mean? Like you said, like that's the noob level, but it adds so much to it. Yeah.
It's hard to screw it up too, which is the beauty of it. But anyway, anything else?
I did get this too from Joe Fest, and it was really weird because if you've never been there before, there's this aftermarket or post sale, whatever, at night. It's like a G.I. Joe refugee camp though, because people are like in the hallways, and like I felt like I had walked into like the black market, and like people were like hustling and moving stuff really fast, and there's like crowds, and like people are sweaty and like panicked, and I was like, what is this allowed? Are we gonna get raided any second here? But like the deals from there were better than anything on the show. Like I got this and a tank for like $15. I'm like, are you serious? Like, are you a cop? You have to tell me if you're a cop. So like, but it was cool, and I never had one of these before, and it's super fun. So again, I'm representing both 1/12 and 1/18.
That's a good. That's a good piece there, though, too.
Oh, super fun, man.
Yeah, your sort of 1/12 and 1/18 will sort of come into this later, I think, when we start discussing, how we collect and why, and sort of how our kids are involved in that. But I'm going to very quickly do my pickups, then we'll check in with the chat, and then we will get into some toy news. So everything that I got came from eCollectables, as does pretty much everything that I buy, because it's super easy to deal with one person to get all my orders. First thing I got was these 2 Super 7 Ultimates from their in-house The Worst line. So I got Captain Deadstar as well as Batula.
Look at that. So I only know this by the name and by Super 7. What is the IP that this is from? Is it their own thing they just made up? Oh, that's cool. That's nice.
Yeah, and they're just weird characters. Like, it's a skull-headed pirate, and then a bat Dracula.
That's awesome.
And then they come like the sculpt. I've heard the articulation's kind of crap, but I didn't really care. The sculpting is fantastic. The accessories and stuff that these come with are great.
Super 7.
And eCollectables had them on at a really, really good price, and I was like, couldn't say no.
That vampire guy, hold on real quick there. He looks like a combination of like Mumra and Count Chocula together. Like he looks Oh yeah, that's great. Oh, that's super fun, man.
And the so Super 7's packaging is always like probably the best out there. This is probably the best Super 7 packaging that I've seen. Like just the way that the cardboard is sort of cut out, like the detail.
Yeah.
Even the slip cover is got like an edge to, like, man, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that right as I shove it into the recycle bin and say goodbye.
Yeah. Yep, that's where those are gonna go.
Yep.
I hate to say it. I've said it before. If I could get Super 7 Ultimates for like $10 less in a brown paper bag, I would be very happy.
Just scratch my name on it with a marker and send it to me. I'm good to go, man. I'm ripping that open. Yep.
Stamp the bag, Ultimate TMNT Donatello, and I'd be like, yeah, great. I know what's in here. Let's move on. I got my second of the Black Series Ewoks. I got Paplu. I hope they do like every named Ewok. I would buy all of them. These things are so cool. They're so small that it's like, it makes it extra fun. They're small for 6-inch.
How old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
Too old to be playing with these.
No. So there's a lot of fans who hated the Ewoks, right?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so and like they were like, oh, but like for me when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, the Ewoks, like I was hooked, and they made the show. It was all about it, right? So like that's where I gauged too, is the age too. Same with like Jar Jar and CP, those more modern ones that we snub our nose at. My kids are like, that guy's awesome. Like, ugh, why do you like them? So
I mean, I don't mind Jar Jar at all. I think he got a bit of a bad rap, but I get it. I get why people dislike him so much. I didn't see any of the originals in the theater. I'm to answer your question, I'm 41 today.
Okay, yeah.
And my first experience with Star Wars was Return of the Jedi in a basement at like my babysitter's house. I've told this story before, so I'll keep it short, but when I was like 5 years old in kindergarten, my brother, who's 2 years younger, was at sort of a daycare that was 2 blocks from my kindergarten. And so after kindergarten, I would walk there and they would watch me for the rest of the day. But I was like 2 years older than all the other kids. So I was there by myself. And they're like, do you want to watch a movie or something? And they just put Return of the Jedi in. I'm pretty sure I watched it every day and and it wasn't like, can I watch something else? It was like, can I watch Return of the Jedi?
Yeah. Just that again. Same thing.
I think after Return of the Jedi, I saw Empire, and after Empire, I saw New Hope. So it was very, you hear about like people being like absolutely blown away to find out that Vader is Luke's father. Spoiler alert. I should have said that. Sorry.
Oh.
But to me, it was like, yeah, I mean, I know that's his dad because
I saw the third movie already.
Because they already talked about it. He's already saved him. What's the big deal? I don't really. Anyways, I digress as I do.
Wait, so today is your birthday and Canada Day?
Yesterday was Canada Day.
Okay, all right.
Today is my birthday.
Oh man!
And then on Tuesday it's not Memorial Day, but 4th of July. What's it called?
4th of July. Yeah,
it's just called 4th of July. I always want to call it something, and I'm always like, there's got to be a name.
That's it. Yeah,
because we don't just call it 1st of July. No, we call it Canada Day.
It's because you're Canada. We're America, damn it. So 4th of July.
It's just the day.
Right, the day. Everyone knows the day. Duh. So
yeah. Exactly. And then I got my G.I. Joe, the latest wave of G.I. Joe figures.
Oh man.
Torpedo, Shipwreck, Rock and Roll, Bazooka, as well as this absolute beauty, Scrap Iron.
Oh yeah.
With Pet, as it was referred in the clearly not a pet, but the anti-armor drone. I don't think I picked this up sort of just on its own. This is really heavy.
Yeah, it seems like it. You're struggling there. Yeah.
There's like a lot in this box. Yeah, I'm getting really old. My arms
see the sweat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are amazing. I'm so so excited. I cherry picked from that because Joe is huge into that line, but I'm like, and I'm getting even less and less. But rock and roll and roll is like I like, like the fact he can do this with the tattoo is amazing. Like he's just screaming with character. The ink on him looks so good. Oh man, I can't wait to get that guy. He's amazing.
Yeah, art. Like on the box art, they do the call out for the hand.
Yes, that's so cool. Like this thing, like the thought that went into that. Whenever people poop on that line, I'm like, you may be mixing up your hate for Hasbro for your hate for this toy line, because this toy line is really good. Like, and I can say that. Yeah, I'm only getting like 3 more of them, and I'm good. But like, it's really good.
So from the start, I was like, I'm not a completist. I don't, if there's some that I don't like, I won't buy them. I think I went it was like figure number like 70 that was like the first one that I skipped. I was like, oh shoot. But that being said, some of them I'm finding it a little easier to pass on them now because we have so many. I'm not doing the Python Patrol. I'm not doing the Tiger Force. Night Force I will do.
Really?
But because they're cool decos. Like I think I loved, Tiger Force as a kid because I was like, wow, this is really cool. And now as an adult, I'm like, I get it. And they were fun toys as a kid, but I don't need.
Totally opposite. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Totally. So when Night Force Shockwave came out, I was like, what is this? And then Night Force Mustrack, I was like, this is what you should have been doing the whole time. Like those, like those guys, Hit and Run, like all the actual dudes who looked like they were in the military and blending in were like the core team when I played with my friends. And everybody else was like second file, like all those Tiger dudes. I'm like, you're going in a cockpit and you're staying there, man. No, Night Force was the it for me. So.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because everybody had sort of their different sort of team that they would build around,
which is awesome. Yeah,
mine were like my core team was Snake Eyes, Chuckles, Bazooka, and Hit and Run. Like, there's not
what a
really
mashup
there. Yeah, exactly. It was just like these are the figures that I like the most, and so they are the ones that always go together. I remember like watching the cartoon and wishing that I would see those guys together, but Hit and Run wasn't even in the dang thing. So anyway, let's jump into the chat and see who's here. You're both here on video and in the comments. Wow.
I'm really committed.
Paints Toy Samples says 2 of my favorite peeps. I think he means you on screen and you in the comments.
He's eating peeps. He's eating peeps.
Oh, gross. Sam Rock is here. Nolan is here. Who else? There's a few more. Oh, what's going on? My comments is going weird. Jeff Morris.
Hey, buddy.
I saw him sneak in. You waved to him even when he came in. Sergeant Slaughterhouse. What's going on, Zazel? Kevin from Toying Around.
Hey.
Who else? Who else we got? Larry Reed is here as well. Let's see what we got going on. Payne's Toy Sample says Murder Bears. Absolutely. I mean, as a kid watching, I didn't really clue into the fact that, like, okay, they have all these helmets. They have human-sized clothing that they can give to Leia. These were all previously inhabited by somebody. Where are those bodies?
They went to the pawn shop. Everyone just read into that too much. They are
I don't know.
Thrift store purchasers. No, yeah, definitely.
Jeff Moore says, I'm 51 and watched Return of the Jedi at a drive-in. I always liked the Ewoks.
Very cool. Yeah.
Return of the Jedi, I still think, story-wise too, like with the redemption arc for Anakin.
I disagree on half of that. I think Return of the Jedi is my favorite of the 3 originals, but story-wise, I think New Hope? What's the first one called now? I can't remember.
Yeah, anyways. Episode 4.
Yeah, New Hope. Story-wise, is one of the best movies still of introducing characters, introducing plot points or whatever.
Sure.
So
yeah.
But yeah, Return of the Jedi stands out. It's got such a epic battle, how it jumps in between a personal fight, a planet fight, and a space fight. Like, that's so good. And like all the other movies have not, except for Rogue One, have not been able to capture that again. So definitely still jumps out in my mind as one of the best.
Jeff Moore says, I like Classified just like everything. Some have been good, some have been not so much. Falcon sucks, but that's okay. We will hopefully get another version, and if not, he's not objectively bad as an action figure. He's just absolutely the worst in the line.
Yeah. That's fair.
Ted is here. I'm gonna skip. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys this once, and I'm not gonna revisit this.
Okay.
As a kid who had a birthday the day after a major holiday, I've kind of just, my birthday doesn't really matter to me. It was also in the summer, so nobody wanted to come to my birthday as a kid, and nobody wanted to come to my birthday as an adult, and I'm okay with that. And now you've all come here by accident, not knowing it's my birthday. So Joke's on you guys.
Mine's right after the holidays, so right after January 1st. So everyone's
Yeah.
like exhausted from holiday. So I've always just bumped it right. I'm just like, no. I'll give everyone a month breathing room and then I celebrate it. So yeah.
I mean, summer, I've always got so much going on too that it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
I don't really. I don't know. I've never been fussed about it. Also, I didn't do a damn thing to be born, so I don't know what the
It's
I
not that
get.
you've been born, it's that you survived another year of life. That's what it
Survive.
is. Like
It's
you've
getting harder and harder
yeah,
to survive,
exactly. You've
right?
gone through the struggle for one more year. So
Exactly.
hey, Ken.
What's going on, Ken? Ken had a great video about something that we're going to talk about. Well, that's a great transition, actually. Let's get right into it. Super 7 is nuts.
Okay.
Super 7 thought to themselves, you know what the world needs? The biggest playset that's
Oh, I know.
ever existed. Super 7 is doing a Thundercats
No
Cats Lair,
way. Are they? This is news to
and
me.
this was the first kind of thing that they showed off. This just kind of outlaw. No, this is the second. They just showed like the chest, sort of
Wow.
light up chest
Yeah.
part, and everybody was like, "Oh, what is it? What is it?" Everybody thought it would be a reactions, like the 4-inch
Yeah.
line.
No.
They do the Cats Lair in that scale. Almost immediately, the Super 7 employees that were sort of in chats and things like that were like, no, we're doing it's ultimate scale. And then
No
this
way.
was, I think
Oh my
today they posted
gosh.
this picture. So this is obviously the back, and if you know Thundercats at all, this is sort of the command center. Now I've heard that basically this part is the most elaborate part, and is
Sure.
sort of one half of the thing basically.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at that, I mean that's at least, I mean, Lion-O's a 7-inch figure. If we sort of extrapolate,
Yeah, no. Yeah.
that top floor is what, 14
It's
inches?
full level because he's sitting there, but you see those top
He's
monitor
sitting,
screens up
yeah.
there? Yeah. They could stand head and or feet on shoulders there, definitely. Yeah.
So
Wow.
we're looking at if the floor, if the lower floor is the same, that's 28 inches plus the height. You're probably looking, I'm gonna guess, 8 to 10 inches. I mean, this thing's gonna be bigger than some people.
Yeah.
I don't know. You kind of were talking about how you're doing, some 6-inch stuff as well as some 1/18, 3 3/4 to 4-inch stuff. You're big into world building.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
So I did see Ken's video and I saved that to watch later, Ken. I just got through your Motu one while I was driving, so I didn't leave a comment, but his was like, hey, do you have any space for these things too? Right. And like that
Mm-hmm.
is a constant challenge with my collection. Like I don't display anymore because we take up the rest of the space to play with it. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact they're making all these play sets. Like it's phenomenal. But I've built 3 huge play sets that are bigger than this. And like, so that thing could go on top of one of my play sets and add to it, right? Personally, but for everyone else, I'm like, what are you gonna do with that, man? Like,
Yeah.
unless that is a dedicated display, which I think most people do, but you gotta like, there's no way anyone pre-planned that in their collection already, right? They're probably
Yeah.
looking at their wall space and be like, what I've got to buy another house now, or I got to make an extension to my
Mm-hmm.
house, like,
Mm-hmm.
or it just goes in the floor. But I think it's really cool. I also am glad that you said world building with 6-inch scale because I think that it gets a lot of flack for not being the world building, which I don't really understand that too much. Like I kind
Army.
of, yeah, army building, but like Joe has like 18 Vipers or whatever, and the price point's the same. I think really what it comes down to is just your space, and that's the only limit. Like I want to be able to do it. I just don't have the space to world build, which okay, but really that becomes like what physical space you're taking up.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I'm definitely gonna pass on this, even though it'd be a beautiful thing to have in my house, and I think my boys would enjoy it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But we have modular play sets that are more adaptable and not fixed to one IP or theme. So that's
Yes.
my main reason for shifting away from it.
Absolutely, and that's kind of where my headspace is too. Is that like I kind of dabble in dios as far as building stuff out of foam, but I'm working within a space that exists in my house,
Mhm.
not the other way around. Like you're saying with this thing, we're going to have to get measurements. And then people, like, if you look at the shelves behind me or the shelves behind you,
yeah, exactly.
it's like, well, it wouldn't work here.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and so I'm looking around like, okay, well, what gets moved? What gets bumped? Where would I put it? You know, I'm, you know, off camera over here, I'm building, there's sort of a shelf with a second shelf and whatever. But the diode that I'm building is sort of incorporating all the dimensions that are pre-existing. And that works because I can kind of work display functionality into it.
Yeah.
This is part of the problem for this is like the front is going to look amazing.
Yep.
But the back is the playset.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So you're also going to kind of need to access it from, like, you're going to want to display it from one side, but have access to the other side.
You need a lazy Susan to be able to turn that bad boy around.
That's what I'm thinking, right? Like you're gonna need something. I think IKEA has like a thing that you can put in your fridge that sort of sits on the shelf and it flips. You can flip the thing, but it's like engineered so that it kind of comes out as it turns, so it doesn't take up like a huge amount of like footprint.
That's a lot of modifications for a playset, right? Like that's a lot you have to go through. Now, so I did buy, and this is so I'm not completely opposed to these giant playsets. I bought the Motu Classics Grayskull. My wife actually got it for me as a surprise. I was in Korea, so I had to wait forever to get it. But it was really cool. And there was no Mythic Legions then, right? So it was just Motu. So I'm like, this is my only 6-inch thing, but it was the same struggle. So what I did was I had to set it up open face and sideways. So on the front of the shelf, I'd have to like lean in, I could see the face. And then it was an L it was like perpendicular to the shelves kind of, right? So, so I was like, okay. But like after that, I was like, Snake Mountain was, previewed like, oh, they're gonna make a Snake Mountain. And I looked at it, I was like, I can't, like, this is impossible, dude. Like, I don't just collect one thing. So, but if you're only a Thundercats collector, then this is an awesome time to be a Thundercats collector, right?
If you're only a Thundercats collector, you may have already made space for this in your house.
Yeah,
you may have been sort of waiting for this to come out. But yeah, I'm the same way. Too many lines, and so that's world building for me has to be. Like extreme sets are great because they're cardboard and they're collapsible.
Yep. Oh yeah, these are.
When I build with
great.
Oh, I got that one too. Yeah, the Sector 7, I think.
Yeah, super good.
But building with foam, often I kind of build it so that it's flat panels where, like, if I need to take it down, I can just stack it all. This is going to be plastic. You're not going to be able to put this away. It's going to be a fixture in your home for probably a long, long time.
Just right on the dining room table. Just go for it. It's like, this is how we do things now, wife.
Build an extension on, enclose your deck or something like that just to get one of these. I can't even begin to think of the price that this is going to be either.
Ooh, do you want to forecast right now?
I'm gonna how much? I don't know how much the Snake Mountain was that they
Neither do I.
Yeah,
but the his tank. So Larry Reed brought up in the chat too. Like I'm still trying to find space for the his tank, and I joke about Joe. I just went to his house. I'm like, where's that his tank going, man? He's like, I don't know. So that
my his tank's gonna go right here.
Okay, great. So that was like,
and then my Dragonfly is gonna go on a shelf over there. I've already got those. I got those locked
those are cool. And the Dragonfly was 250, right? 250?
Yeah, 275.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a vehicle that's like not close to this scale. It doesn't, it's intricate, but not size wise or intricacy. So those were 300, let's say. So I saw Payne jump in at 800. I think I'm going to go with 799, Alex. I think that's where I'm going to land at there.
I'm going to go 801.
Exactly. Yeah. So there.
but I actually think we could see this over $1,000.
Ooh. Oh.
For two reasons. It's absolutely monstrously big.
Yeah.
And Super 7 is not known for really caring about people's budgets.
The $50 price point figures means the playsets will probably be equally as high comparatively, right? So yeah. Yep.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking is that I think I'm very curious to see how this does. Because the last thing that Super 7 did that people kind of pushed back on, primarily because of the price, was that Rescuer set where you got two figures and it was like $80 or something like that. they were relatively small, but you got 2 kind of packed into one box, but then they bumped the price up to almost the price of 2 figures anyway. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Super 7, you know, they have a it's kind of a love it or hate it type of relationship with fans. I think, you know, there's a lot of people that absolutely appreciate what Super 7 is doing and trying to do. But they do get a lot of pushback for pricing. They do get a lot of pushback for how delayed some things get. Thundercats, I think, has been okay for scheduling. There's been some issues, I know, with some of the figures. They just updated the Ninja Turtles Super 7 Ultimates. They're like wave, I think it's wave 7.
7, yeah, delayed. Yep.
Delayed till 2024. Meanwhile, waves 8, 9, and 10 are like scheduled for 2023. And people are kind of like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what, you know, what's going on? Why are you continuing to release more pre-orders?
Right.
If you know the next wave has gotten pushed back, you know, will wave 8 get pushed back, and it just hasn't happened yet? Like, you know, I think I was going to mention this too, just because, you know, for sort of full transparency, I love what Super 7 does. I don't buy all of it, but I love what they do. You know, just looking at their Instagram, this is their Instagram that I pulled up. You know, they've got their weirdest line now to go with their worst line. They got the Disney stuff. They got Thundercats. They got Princess Bride. They got these weird bubble wand bottles for these weird properties. Richard Scarry's Busy World. I'm really excited about this, by the way. Hoping that it's either reaction or at very worst, you know, Ultimates. I hope it's not one of their like 18-inch, you know, figurines or whatever it is, because then I wouldn't have room for it. But Gremlins, Ghostface Killer, My Chemical Romance, Vampira, Ramones. I'm just skimming over some. Sex Pistols. You know, they did Prince, I think. They got Jimi Hendrix. They got a new Ninja Turtles line. They're doing all the G.I. Joe stuff.
So what you're saying is they're very focused.
Yeah, they're really drilling down to you know what specifically they want to do. Is it a fair sort of thing for people to say that they're just getting a little too wild with, you know, the number of licenses?
I mean, so from an action figure collecting point of view like us, yes. But I think this ties into our topic with our kids later on too, is that people look at pop culture in different ways and they don't want playability. They want icons that represent something. So like pop figures, are perfect. Yeah, our example, like those little poppy heads or whatever they are. Like every time, I absolutely just hate those things. But there are people who love those and like buy them and they get joy out of them. So I'm like, okay, I don't get it. But you do. Same thing with the reaction or any of these like bands. It's like, oh, it's a band, it's an action figure. Like there are many, there's even fair weather action figure collectors and people who aren't even into action figures, but like the novelty or they collect it ironically. Like they are appealing to such a broader demographic by doing those things that I can't hate on it because I get it. And they're probably doing really well at it. For us though, we're like, just give me my toys. You know what I mean? So like we have a different motive than what they're looking at. So
I think, I mean, you have a very good point, is that like Super 7 does, I totally agree with you. Super 7 has sort of a purview to put out, you know, iconic things. They just happen to be doing a lot of action figures. And so as action figure collectors, we're kind of like, they have too many IPs or whatever, but they're doing what they want. And, you know, they do a pretty good job. I mean, the figures in hand are usually pretty good. There's QC issues here and there, but for the number of figures that they're putting out, they're doing pretty well. I think so. You know, I think the optics that sort of people get hung up on is like, you know, TMNT Wave 7. They go, well, that got pushed back. Like everything gets pushed back. You know, they can't get anything on time or whatever.
But the people who are saying that are the ones who want the TMT wave.
Right? Oh, they're buying it. Yeah, they're buying it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so it's like, oh,
and
Super 7 sucks.
Like, I'm like, if they could manage to get caught up on all the pre-orders, would people feel the same way about the new IPs that they announce, right? Like, if the turnaround was better, I think people would kind of go, yeah, bring on more, like if they can keep up, with the scheduling of these, we'll take it all. But I think it's that, and this isn't just Super 7, right? There's been a lot of pushback recently for like pre-orders being the vast majority of a lot of people's collections.
So Ken made a video about this too. I don't know if you already kind of covered this as well. I think with the chart or whatever, but I was like, I'm kind of done. I'm kind of done with pre-ordering. It's not fun. It hits, actually the biggest complaint is it hits my bank account at the worst possible times.
Yep.
And then I have to have a conversation with a wife. Like, I thought you budgeted this. I'm like, I did for November. It's July. I don't understand this. Or like it all gets pushed over and then dumps at once. And I'm like, oh, this is killing me because of course, I don't actually put the money aside. I spend it. I spend that money, right?
Yeah.
So like
you had it at the time,
right? Yeah.
But then you went to Target and you were like, well, yes. I mean,
so when I know a pre-order is coming, I hold back. But if I'm like, oh, it's not this month, I'm going to spend that money. Like, yeah. So I get it. That's partially my fault, but at the same time, you got to be cognizant of people's, you know what I mean, like budgets too. So I don't know, but anyways, that totally aside.
Ken says they can't go to 1,000 for optics alone. I don't know.
Well, so I think it's a great point, but so one, the economy right now stinks, right? So that could be part of it too. Like people are gonna get burnt out and be like, hey man, my gas bill's too high as it is. That could be a point too. But I don't think I think we have reached a new point in buying where we have just accepted higher prices, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's $1,000. Like, oh, well, that's not $2,000 though. You know what I mean? So like, I think we're creeping into there. So I don't know.
I could see this being like 995.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yes, exactly.
We can't go 4 digits. We can't. That decimal place has to stay where it is, visually. Right. So if we go 995, we'll be okay. Or like 980 or something, where people are like, well, it's better than 1,000. You're like, it's the shipping on top of that and taxes. It's
exactly.
Still. David Williams has joined us. Says Super 7 definitely needs to chill. Quantity over quality is shining like a sun from that company. It's tough. It's tough. Like I said, I got those Super 7 Ultimates, the worst figures, and the articulation from every review that I've seen before I bought them, the articulation is kind of garbage, and it's their own IP. So whether that's just the way they're doing it or whether, I don't know. I mean, I buy what you love and sort of move on if you don't has always been my thing. The TMNT Ultimates I love. I mean, they're just such fun action figures.
Yeah.
I don't even have the vintage turtles. I was like, I don't need the vintage ones. I can get these ones.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm also not all in on that. I got the turtles and I got like the original 10 and then random ones here and there where it was like, oh, this is a favorite as a kid, or I remember getting this one or whatever. So Sewer Surfer Michelangelo's on my desk right over here. So
is he really? Oh man.
He was lounging in the pool earlier, so he's in his own. He's got his own unicorn floaty. He's just chilling out. So
I hated that guy even as a kid. I was like, ugh.
Oh, I loved him as a kid.
Did you? That's so funny,
man. Larry Reed says Pops are our version of Beanie Babies.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And they're kind of going the way of Beanie Babies right now too. Brandon Estrada says, I quit Super 7 TMNT after Wave 4. Didn't feel like paying those prices since they get as low as 25 on Entertainment Earth. Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Canada, so I don't really have that. We don't see the same kind of deals. And if Entertainment Earth does it at $25, but I got to ship it, it ends up being the same price or more as just paying full price to eCollectables up here in Canada for me. So, I pick and choose. And I kind of, if I've got an order that I know is coming, I go, hey, Mike, can you add, one of the Super 7s to my order? And that's I gave him a list and I said, can you set one of each of these aside and sort of, in the next 2 years, I'll be able to sort of get through all of them. But Brick said, those who want this will pay top dollar. Super 7 Snake Mountain was $600 back in the day, $715 in 2023 money. Yeah. Eternia was $550. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
That's what I'm putting around 800, I think. Yeah, I think Payne and I are on the same page.
At least 8. I think 8. I think 8's low. And I'm typically somebody that when I hear people guess about a lot of things, I'm like, no, that seems high. I'm usually the other way. Like, I'm usually like, no. It's like with Classified, right? When Serpentor was announced and everybody was like, oh, it'll be 120, 140. I was like, I don't think so. I think it'll be under $100.
I just decided exactly where I land on this playset. Because I was like, what would I pay? What would I pay? If somebody said $80, $80, like, hey, Dom, $80, I would be like, oh, that's an amazing price. I gotta pass. Like, that's how big that thing is. I like, that doesn't matter. Like, I just can't do that size. So I just realized where I landed on that thing. So yeah.
Brick makes another good point. The vintage Cat's Lair is about $1,000. So if you're a hardcore fan and want a Cat's Lair,
that's what I'm saying. If you are a Thundercats collector right now, it is an amazing time to be a Thundercats collector. For everybody else, this may not speak as broadly. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, whoops. No, that was the one I meant to get. Beta Ray Bob, did anybody get any of those Super 7 Toys Alliance, the worst figures that are built with mostly Acid Rain World parts? Cool. No, I'm very curious to sort of hear and see the reviews on those. They look really cool.
I got to meet Bob at Joe Fest too. Super good dude.
Nice. Beta Ray Bob also says I ordered one because they were in 1/18th. It's on the way. Well, keep us posted. I hope to hear more. And he says, yeah, I like the brain in a jar head they have. Yeah, I mean the design
those are awesome.
Is like
really
cool. Next up, what did I have next up? Well, we already kind of talked about it a little bit, but I'll bring it up here, just because we've been talking about it. We're talking about world building. The G.I. Joe HasLab Dragonfly is up 14,500 backers now. Joe's getting this. You're not getting one of these though?
No, sir.
Now, is that down to scale?
So it just comes to space, man. Like, I like the classified line, but for like, honestly, I've started when I play with my boys, I'm like, I don't feel like playing with these G.I. Joe guys with my boys. And then we enjoy, I love the Valaverse figures too, but like, there's just so much that or like my boys actually found a tub of something today. Like, Dad, what are these guys? I'm like, oh yeah, we played with those like 2 years ago, man. Like, oh, we got to drag these out. I'm like, man, I'm at the point now where I'm in my collection oversaturated. So I don't need this. Like, I 100% don't need it. I can't wait to go over to Joe's house and fly his Dragonfly around to smoke his tank. But yeah, no, I don't need it.
I mean, I can't wait. This thing's awesome.
It's really cool. Yes. Yeah. 100%. Really cool. Don't get me wrong.
This to me, you know, like when they showed this shot, I was like, well, there's your world building, right? There's your world building. They got his tank, you know, they got the Dragonfly. I'm also somebody that doesn't need everything. And what I mean by that is, like, for world building, I don't need the whole world. You know, I don't need 37 different G.I. Joe vehicles if I can get 3 or 4 that I really love.
Man, that's why I like making platoons and companies. So like I love uniformity. So when I have these weird variant one-offs, I'm like, go away. I need matching, you know, to build that. So yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to this. Apart from the Vamp, which is my absolute favorite G.I. Joe vehicle, this was one that I absolutely thought I would love to have in 6-inch scale. Partly because we're talking about, you know, space danger. This is long, but it's fairly narrow, so you can still get it on a shelf, and it doesn't sort of hang out.
You're not going to suspend it from your ceiling with a fishing line and tacks, no?
No, because I'm going to play with it. I mean, this is going to be a fun toy to play with.
It's all. Could you go to the front? I actually haven't paid attention to the front canopy. I want to see if it's more Cobra gunship or Apache. Did they update it?
More Cobra.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, fair enough.
Where is it?
It's okay. It's yeah. Oh no, it's kind of not quite the Apache, not quite the Cobra, but yeah, more Cobra. That bubble canopy is gigantic, but that is really cool. Like,
I'm trying to find. There is like a side profile, like a full side profile.
Yeah, it's got the nose of the Cobra, and it's got a bigger bubble. The Apache is more flat and angled, and blocky. So no, that is really cool. Like that, the detail they put in these things, the modifications they allowed you to have into it, the fact it comes with a stand, like no, it's amazing. I'm not passing this thing because of like, snobbery or anything like that or whatever. Like this is amazing. This is if somebody were like, hey Dom, $100, be like, yes, absolutely. Like
yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, you could get a vintage one for probably about that.
I've got 3. I'm good.
Oh,
yeah, that's
there
like, you know
go.
what I mean? Like I'm good. And even those, I'm kind of like, it's a Cobra gunship. Like in my mind, I'm like, I'm not playing in Vietnam anymore. You know what I mean? So
right.
But no, gorgeous. I can't wait for you to get it. I can't wait to go play with Joe's. Like super cool.
That was, I'll be honest, my one complaint was I wanted it to be a little more modernized than it was. But anyway,
that's a whole nother conversation about even
yes.
attempting to innovate or modernize classic IP. Yeah, which I agree with
absolutely.
you, by the way. Yeah, 100% agree.
I think initially they kind of were going in that route, and then and then they heard some feedback, and kind of have gone back to more classically designed decos and things like that. There's touches of this that modernize it or make it different, at least than the original.
Yep.
The whole top bit, there's kind of a black stripe along the top.
Yeah, really cool.
The fins are yellow. The rotors are more modernized. So it's going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait to get it. David Williams says Classified is a line I don't collect, but everything coming out is so good. Yeah, I mean there's obviously going to be misses. There's going to be misses that certain people won't like everything. You're going to have QC issues. I mean, I think that Falcon kind of falls into like something went wrong with that figure. But Larry Reed says, I get the Dragonfly, depends how much I make. He'll get the Dragonfly depending on how much he makes at the Transformers Con. Fair enough. I'm kind of going through my collection and being like, okay, what can I get rid of next? How do I make a little bit of room and a little bit of money to sort of offset the cost of this thing? Then we're going to jump over to the Geek Dad Life website take a look at the TMNT
Mayhem.
Mutant Mayhem action figures. Are you guys into Turtles much? I know you do.
Yeah, so Joe does the Ultimates, right? And then my boys and I am big into the 2012 show. Like I really love that show a lot. The show that came after it, my boys, like with unbiased, I was like, hey, let's check this show out. And halfway through the first episode, they're like, I don't really like this. I'm like, yeah, neither do I, man. So we jump back. I didn't like the aesthetics. I didn't like it was too goofy. This is like a weird blend between those two. Like it kind of, so my first impression with these guys is they're more frog. Like I don't know what it is. The gangly legs, they look so frog-like.
I could see that. Yeah, for sure. Especially Michelangelo, who seems to have like a weird kind of wide, flat head.
Yeah. So I like the packaging is very mixed. It's very callback to the original line with like the layouts, but it's also like bright and purple. Like I think it's cool. Oh, the villains I think are really fun too.
There seems to be, it's funny because the initial reaction to this, like from Turtles, from like the Ninja Turtles community, the sort of the vocal reaction to this.
Here we go.
Which is always going to be more skewed towards the negative because people that love things tend to talk about it less. People that don't like things will let you know. A lot of people kind of didn't like the designs, thought, like, how dare you, do something different with Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles has always been something different.
It's always evolving. It's always from the movies, from every show.
Gosh, it changes. It's different.
The early 2000s show where they tied in a lot of mysticism into it, like there was firebenders and all this other stuff. I can't remember because I was kind of in and out of that at the time, but that was a very different aesthetic twist. 2012 was a different aesthetic twist. The Nickelodeon they're all different. The movie was different, just like, except this is going to be ironic, but you should accept the fans some evolution with your mutants, right? Like just accept that's going to happen. Like it drives me crazy. And like, I don't know. And so I actually am doing I guess it's a podcast now with Eric at No You Grow Up, and we're rereading the IW comic books issue by issue. And I absolutely love the IW comic books. Like, it's relatively new, and he's an old Mirage guy, and I've read the Mirage too, but I'm like, no, this is my Eternals canon, and it's pretty fresh, and I'm a pretty old guy. So like, just turning, it's very close-minded, and I can't stand it, because what people are screaming for is the exact same thing over and over. I'm like, bro, if you want a carbon copy, just go to eBay. Like, what are you looking for? So sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you're absolutely right. I mean, you make a very good point. It's sort of like, if you're somebody that absolutely doesn't want anything to change, if you don't want anything new, if you don't want anything different, then, you know, why are you part of the conversation? Like, you have your stuff.
I know. Yeah.
Go home and love what you have.
Gatekeeping, I don't know, like the old guard. So the same things in D&D too, but I think
it's the same thing in every IP, I think.
It is, yeah. And to be very positive, I think these are fun. They're bright. They look like great toys. If my kids were more into Ninja Turtles, I would easily, in fact, they probably will see these on the shelves and want them, and I'll have to remind them, like, hey, I got all the 2012 figures. Like, we don't need another Four Brothers. I think they're really fun and vibrant.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Well,
so
I left this one for last because I think this one segues perfectly into sort of the topic today. The topic today, you know, how are we, and I mean you and I'm not telling anybody what to do or how to do it, but how are we sort of sharing collecting with our kids? And I think you and I sort of see collecting differently than a lot of quote unquote collectors, because you and I are alike in that we buy toys to play with them with our kids.
Yes, super
and
fun.
To kind of, you know, I think you and I are both trying to sort of share the fun of toys with our kids, maybe more so than like the collecting aspect of it. You know, like we collect things because there is things to have. You know, if you're world building, you're like, well, we have a pilot and that goes with, you know, this ship, but now we got a new ship. Now we need a new pilot. And then it's like, but now we need a mechanic because we have multiple ships.
Yeah.
And if you have a mechanic, well, then now you need, you know, a cook because they're going to get hungry. Like, so I think for you, you know, collecting is just sort of the evolution of the imagination, the sort of.
Yeah. I want to reveal a secret to you here. So, it was only, let's see, where are we? 53 minutes in. So add 5 minutes to that. So 58 minutes ago, almost an hour ago, I realized I had misread this topic because I thought it said passing our collections to our kids, as in when we are dead, what we will pass on to them. So I was like, so I talked to my boys. So I talked to my boys about that, and without saying dad, I'm like, hey, if you had my collection right now, what would you take from it? So there was like, that was the focus of their feedbacks too, right? So like, it wasn't until you and I were talking before this was like, wait, what is he talking? Oh my gosh, it's passing collecting. Like, how are we doing it now? Like, so that's way easier. And like, I was like, man, this is a dark topic, Adam. Like, okay,
no.
All right, when you're picking through my remains, you can have these figures. So, so anyway, yes, it is. And let's be honest too, when my kids are too cool for school and they are done with this, I'm hoping to, at the end state of the day, that they have their own collecting habits. Yeah, it would have been an awkward time. Writing a will on a stream, like, all right, well, Finn's gonna get these things. And
on my birthday, let's talk about when we die. What an existential crisis type of topic.
But here's what's funny, and I'll get back to the topic too. But my dad is a big collector, not of toys, but of memorabilia. So like World War II stuff, stuff like. So he travels to Europe all the time. He comes over all this stuff, right? And so like he's 70 plus, and he started talking to the kids about like, hey, so you know, we gotta figure out who's getting what, right? And I'm like, okay. And in my head, there's 5 things I want out of his entire house, because as a kid, those were the things that I remember him the most by, and they're weird stuff. It's really weird. It would look like a yard sale bin, right? But anyways, he has all these collections. Like, well, who's gonna take all the German memorabilia and the blah blah blah? And we're all dead silent. And I was like, hey,
Everyone's
Dad.
looking at each other like,
yeah, I was like,
somebody please speak up.
Yeah, he thought we were
I
going to
don't
be
want
fighting. Yeah, he thought we were in my hat collection and my Russian
Yeah.
dolls. I was like, hey, Dad, like I don't know if you've been to my house, but I have a basement filled with my own collections. I have no idea where yours are going to go. And like his face was like, what? And like, so that struggle, I don't want my kids to assume they're inheriting any of this stuff. But what I want them to take away from this, and this ties into collecting here in a weird way, is that we are building their nostalgia together now. Like, let's pull here. Let's pull this guy. Like, I don't know this guy's name. You do. Like,
Tiberius.
Yep, but that's not what my sons and I call him, right? So
don't have to.
We're exactly. So we are building this. In fact, he's got a compass. This is from a Barbie doll camp set or whatever, but it's a compass that he fought a gargoyle to get. So now he's wearing it. So that is what I am trying to build with my boys right now.
My pal is wearing Ken's denim
there you
shorts.
go. So. That's awesome. So in the far future, my sons can either go through the collection and be like, Dad, can I take this guy home? Or they are maybe AWOC becomes huge. So in 20 years from now, that's the retro, right? And they're buying all AWOC figures to recapture the nostalgia when they played with their dad. That's one of my end states, is to be like, I want them to appreciate all these moments we're spending together and how we collect.
Sure.
Now, once they're out of this house and they're too cool, I'm going to still play with these toys and make videos and do all this stuff too, right? So I think that it is a great way to bond. It is a great way to show appreciation for non-digital. And I know people have been very counter, like, well, it's plastic, it's all this plastic. I'm like, yeah, okay, everything with a balance, right?
Yeah.
And I also think it's an amazing way to stem imagination. You can have more lessons there. And it's on your hands and knees and pushing figure around and making silly voices and like arguing about like who could do what. And like, I don't know, that is collecting for me. It's not the completion of a line, but like you described, adding to this world and allowing them to influence it too.
Yeah, I'm the same way. There's an aspect of sort of curating the pieces to tell the stories that you want to tell. More so than curating pieces because you're missing something in a collection,
right? I not bag on people who display, right? Like you've got a huge display up there too. I can't do it because every time we pull down figures, just cleaning up to put in a bin is a struggle, much less standing them all back up on a shelf. So I'm like, I can't do that. But there is more satisfaction for me personally by world building something out and I cherry pick from Thundercats and TMNT is a perfect example. We talk about the site. I cherry pick the characters I want to blend into that world. So those are like not representative to nostalgia IP, but to be like, hey, do you guys know there's this cool snow guy, cat guy that can fit in with whatever, or this mutagen muckman? And like, it ties to some nostalgia, but mostly it's like, hey, this is cool monster we can have in this game. So
I specifically picked this topic for you because I love, the way that you guys play with your toys. I tend to be more like, I tend to play more in the sandbox of the IP as it exists.
Wait, let me ask you, hold on. So let me ask you about that. So, because I struggle with this as an adult. Well, it's easy when we're sometimes, but like, we create
These
characters.
Are the funniest problems for adults to be honest.
So like it is easier for me to create a new character and pull different things and be like, this person is Bill and he's an alcoholic and whatever. It's sometimes harder for me to be like, wait, no, that's what would Wolverine say in this case? Like I have to be Wolverine. I have to be Cyclops because there are. How do you do that? Do you just lean in and be like, yeah, this is easy, man? I just look at an episode and be like, now I'm Superman. Like, how do you do that?
A little bit. I mean, but again, I think that's a thing that's different for everybody too, right? Because there's some people that are like, I'm an absolute, use Wolverine as an example, right? I've read every issue of Wolverine. I've seen every version, the pre-MCU, I guess, the Fox universe, all the different cartoons, blah, blah, blah. There's some people that kind of, if they see a new version of Wolverine, will resent it, right? In the same way that when people see it, I heard the complaint about the new Ninja Turtles that they sound too young, and I'm like, they're teenage kids. That's what they would sound like.
Yep.
It's a weird complaint to have, but if what is like the '87 cartoon, or even like the 2003 cartoon, where they kind of come across more adult than they really are. Like, I get why that would be difficult. All canon, whether it's official or not, is somebody's head canon. And if it's official canon, it's just a particular person's head canon.
Sure.
So for me, I never really
like
have an
fan
issue.
fiction, like fan fiction.
Yeah, I mean, like, so that's where, like, I'm never like, oh, you know, Wolverine would never say that. It's like, yeah, maybe he would. Maybe, like, there people have different moods. People aren't.
No, that's true. Yeah.
So I've never really had that. I like to have a general idea of a character's personality, and then sort of go from there.
Sure.
And so that, yeah, that's kind of how I go.
My adult playing with toys. You've actually played with toys on a stream with me before. My adult playing with toys would be basically just like, hey, let's play D&D, but with action figures. Like that. And that's kind of what I do with my kids to the extent too. I'm like, there are boundaries. Like, you can't go beyond the realm of reality. I bend a little bit more for my 6-year-old because let him have that imaginative space. And that's a battle I have all the time with my 8-year-old. I'm like, it's okay. He can do a ninja flip. But Dad, it's okay, man. He can do a ninja flip. Just let him ninja flip, right? And so, like, being able to have that creative space and pull, and Finn loves to just grab characters. So I had to build a mechanic to allow him to just add characters in whenever he wants. I'm like, hey, man, there's a mercenary company and this is their barracks. So anytime a dude can run out and join their
right.
Yes. So, but that is how, and it's not collecting, I guess, because I the point of this, I think we had the conversation before, is like the old guard is like, oh, toy collecting is dying. Why aren't these kids in these video games? Yeah, okay, man. Like, people were complaining about us with the Nintendo back in the day too, right? Like, I don't think video games are the problem, because my kids and I play video games together, and then we also break and come and play with toys. So it's just how this isn't me lecture parenting either, right? But like, it is something you can also manage and be like, hey, so this game is fun. Oh, did you like that video game? Let's go play Subnautica downstairs. Like, that's really fun, right? So,
well, I think there's, you know, we kind of briefly were chatting about this before we went live, and I think there's an element of like, you know, it's typically, you know, there are other people in the space, but more often than not, it feels like it's sort of fairly privileged white males of our age that are having these conversations.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, kids are at stores buying toys that we just don't pay attention to.
Yes.
You mentioned video games. Fortnite has a toy line. Roblox has apparently a very successful toy line. I don't even know what that is.
Fortnite, Bakugan, Pokemon, Power Rangers. Like, so again,
Minecraft has Lego.
Yeah, I take my kids to the toy aisle, and like, I hear that too. Like, oh, the toy aisles. I'm like, hey, man, I think the 80s where there was one aisle just for G.I. Joe and one aisle just for, that was gluttony and too much and oversaturation, and like, toy lines made it through one wave and then died, you know, like Crystar or whatever. Like, they would just die, man. There was too much stuff. Now, maybe there could be a little bit more out there, but I agree. Like, when I take my kids to the store, Jurassic Park, like, my kid cannot get enough dinosaur stuff. I'm like, there's plenty in this aisle for me to lose my budget on with these two kids right now, right? So like, I don't
Jurassic
like Bakugan.
Park's a great example because kids are buying them because they're dinosaurs, not because they've seen the movies.
Right. And
like my 7-year-old, you know, loves snakes and reptiles and dinosaurs, but I've showed her the trailer and she's kind of just getting to the point where she's like, I think I might want to watch it. I'm like, it's pretty scary. She's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, all right. I mean, whenever you want to, I'll let you watch it. I mean, I don't think it's something you can't watch, but the point being, this was sort of what I was getting at with the topic, is sort of like, you know, are we saying that kids don't, like, that collecting is going to die with us in terms of the IPs that we love?
Do we have a perspective
bias? Because kids, I mean, your dad's a good example, right? He collects something. Collecting will continue. Some of the IPs that we love, maybe
my precious G.I. Joes that were nostalgic to my childhood and mean so much to me will die. Yes, same as you will die. Like, that's an unfortunate consequence of being mortal. But my kids have things. She is huge into Pokemon, which actually is weird because that came out when I was like probably late middle school, and like I never latched on.
Around
so
forever.
that's a bad example actually, because he's latched into that one deep. But like Bakugan was not around when I was a kid, and my 6-year-old loves Bakugan, and I guarantee he's like, that will not die until, you know, because that'll resurge back in. There's going to be a Super 7 Ultimate Bakugan in 30 years, and Finn will be like blowing his paychecks on it, right? So like that is, you spoke the truth, and I'm always hesitant to say this when I'm in very like GI Joe centric chats, especially because I'm like, hey, it's not toy collecting is going to die, it's your nostalgic franchise will fall off, because I don't play GI Joe with my kids. We play my own military lore and our own sci-fi canon. There is no Duke, Snake Eyes, Chuckle. None of those people exist in our reality. We head swap and build new characters. So you hit it on the head, and it's something I'm always so hesitant to say this to, like, especially like Joe collectors. I'm like, I'm sorry, man, it dies with us, you know.
But it's and so I think it's sort of like a, you know, it's a resentment that like it's almost, I think, on some level. Now this goes to what you thought the topic was. I think it's almost like an existential kind of mortality type thing, right? Where we're almost projecting.
Comment. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No. Save that comment from Taylor, but keep going. Sorry, dude.
I don't know who Taylor is. Taylor, welcome, says just randomly stumbled on this channel, just hoping Paperboy comes up, or we can admit that Digimon was actually okay.
I loved Digimon. I loved it. And I showed my kids it recently. I was like, hey, you know, there's this other thing called Digimon, and they got into it, but we got lost with other stuff. But I went to see Digimon in the theaters. I was like, this movie is really weird, but I thought it was great. And I was like in college or whatever when I saw it. Anyway, sorry, did not mean to sidebar. I just saw that. I was like, hey, so.
Digimon's great. I mean, that was like Pokemon, Digimon, Bakugan, like all the Yu-Gi-Oh, like all these different kind of versions.
Beyblade,
like that. You know, we talk about GI Joe and Thundercats and Motu and all that kind of stuff because that's sort of our generation. That was kind of the next generation of toys that had cartoons that kind of went with them, right? And I think Digimon didn't quite catch on here like some of those other ones did, but I thought the designs were awesome.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Like digitally evolving monsters that leveled up and got like weird weapons and armor and just cool features and functions,
all of that you just bucketed together there comes with collectability, gaming, and cuteness, or like cool aesthetics. Like they beat GI Joe and Motu and anything that like maybe not Transformers, but anything Star Wars, anything else that we like, because of those three combinations in there. They do it so well that is constantly appealing to anybody, and you never get stuck in like, there's like over 1,000 Pokemon. You can keep making more Pokemon, and no fan will be like, oh, that's not my Charmander. It's Charmander Black from whatever island now. So move on. Like it's acceptable.
They've also sort of seen, you know, hindsight's 2020, right? So they've looked at previous IPs and said, well, why did this die?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you build in the functionality of, oh, we went to a new location and now there's another 100 Pokemon. No one questions it, because all you got to do is come up with the next island or the next country or the next wherever that they're going. You could go to an astral plane and all of a sudden, you know, you start over again. I'm going to read a couple quick comments. And then I'm going to come back to Ninja Turtles. Smiler67, Tyler said collecting toys and playing with them is a youthful experience I instill in my daughter so that when she's older she remembers to stay young. Adulting can be brutal and being a kid remedies that. I absolutely, Tyler, agree 100%. I mean, this is my refuge, right? This is my space away from the real world. I'm not trying to escape my life, but I'm trying to sort of have an oasis where I can remember a sort of simpler time and a less just a less grimy time, I think, is the way that I kind of look at toys. And then Beta Ray Bob also said, I don't get the people who love stuff don't talk about it as much as people who don't like stuff. I love the Eagle Force line. I will talk about it to anyone that will listen. That is me with AWOC. I am posting it in groups that never asked about it, just because maybe there's somebody that's never heard about it, so on and so forth. I just think it's yeah. I mean, share what you love, right? And I think there's not enough positive voices to offset the minority that is
a whole nother. You can have a whole episode of that, man.
Yeah.
Like the positivity. Yeah, 100% on same board on board.
But I will say this: it is what it is. I mean, that's human nature. So you know, I try not to get down on stuff that isn't like a real problem.
Who's got that kind of time and energy?
Why are you spending so much time?
Yeah, being angry, man. There's a couple channels where I'm like, why you spent a whole video on just being angry about this? Like, go do something that actually is like, hey, but I love this thing instead. Like,
it gets
waste
clicks,
of energy.
it gets views.
Oh, I know, I get it. But anyway,
I just want to offer an alternative.
Absolutely.
Is all. You know, if there's room for that, then there's room for this. That's kind of how I look at it, and people can kind of pick what they like.
I make one plug? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I wanted to make one plug. So, because this is all in the same thing. So, I just made a new video. It's another backyard battle. We actually played it while I was on vacation. So, of course, we're going on vacation. My wife's packing paddle boards, and I had a freaking like 2 foot by 3 foot tote of figures and tank. And I was like, I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna do, but we're gonna have a battle out there. So we brought it. The cabin where we rented had like this gorgeous like lichen bed under the shade. It was so cool and like physically cool, but also like my imagination and suspension of disbelief like just absolutely sucked me into this world. And we started taking broken sticks and shoving them into the dirt. So when you got down, it actually looked like trees. I was like, I am 100% immersed into this game. And like for 3 hours, all of us were just immersed. Like I kept looking up like, are you guys good? Because that's kind of the end of the fight. Like, well, let's have in reinforcements. And we just like refreshed and fought over it again. So I made a video of that, and it's more narrative based on the actual game mechanics too. But I just posted out there. It's super fun. But like, I am hoping those games I play with my kids are what they'd like. Oh yeah, my dad made like this amazing battlescape, and like there was actually rules and like tanks and all this stuff too. Like that is so fun. So
now, if it doesn't happen that you can kind of get that game out into the world as a physical thing that people can buy or whatever, you know what I bet's going to happen? Your kids in 30 years are going to be looking for the game. They're like, I can't find it anywhere on the internet. And people are going to be like, it doesn't exist, man. And they're going to be like, no, like we played it all the time. Like, there was cards, there was rules, there was everything.
You guys are insane. I know it's there.
How have you never heard of this before? They're like, actually, only you guys did. So coming back to now, I completely lost my train of thought. I was going to come back to the Ninja
You want to
Turtles.
circle back to Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, but now I can't remember why. Basically, what it was that when they hit refresh, right? When we get this new version of Ninja Turtles, this is what perpetuates the next generation of collectors. You know, this is what inspires them to look back. Right? Because that you always have to have a starting point. You always have to get in somewhere. I got into Star Wars with Return of the Jedi. I got into G.I. Joe with the cartoon. You know, and then, you know, 40 years later, I'm buying Paplu, right? It's so it doesn't all happen in a vacuum. I think part of the concern that people are having about like collecting's gonna die, I think is somehow in some way like tied to the idea that, you know, they don't want things reinvented. And it's problematic for that reason.
I agree.
I took my 7-year-old to see the Spider-Verse movie. One of the trailers at the beginning was the Ninja Turtles movie. And she said, can we see that one next? And I was like, I was hoping you were going to see that.
It looks super fun. Yeah.
After we see that movie, we're gonna buy the toys. That's the natural progression, right? So I think I also think that it's quite ironic because, like I was saying when we were talking about the Ninja Turtles, so many people were talking about, I don't like the designs, you know, they sound like teenagers, on and on. Street date hits for those figures in store. Ninja Turtle groups are blowing up. Everybody's buying the figures. They're like, these figures are great. They're so much fun. They're such a good callback to the, you know, the original Turtles, all this kind of stuff. So I think it's just funny that, you know, we go through these different phases and we go through these different things. Dom, you're playing with the toys with the kids. My kids play with almost anything in here.
That's awesome.
There are very few exceptions. Yeah. And where there are exceptions, they're usually on higher shelves so that they can't reach them and they can't really see them. All the Lego is like really low to the ground, so they have access to it. I think collecting dies when we stop sharing it, when we stop making it accessible to the next generation.
Yeah, 100%.
When we start saying, oh, you can't touch that. It's like, well, why would they be interested in something that they don't experience? And it just doesn't work that way.
I heard too. Yeah. So like, you know, like, so I'm a hypocrite, I guess. But I couldn't help, this one channel did that. And there was a topic or board. This was like a year ago when I was first getting into this. And it was that same thing, like, oh, collecting, you know, these kids, like, oh, we got to get kids, you know, the figures have to be affordable. We got to get G.I. Joes in our hands. And I'm kind of like, well, I mean, you need to get toys in their hands. I don't really care if it's G.I. Joe or not, because like I don't care about Snake Eyes. But then,
how dare you?
A little later, some of the same personalities made kind of a video about like sure, of course you can grab any of my toys. Of course I want you to play with my toys. I'm like, hey, bro, you're not fostering that collectivity. You're not actually doing anything. You know what I mean? Like you're working against yourself. And I was like, what do you do with these then, man? Like, yeah. So I 100% agree with you. And again, I don't want to like bag any specific channels. This is very outdated. And the guy does a lot of great work too. But yes, that was a counterpoint against. I'm like, hey, you're working against yourself there, man. You should be much more open with it. There's a few other great channels that are like, yeah, my cousins come over, or like, oh, my niece and nephews come over, and they can grab this stuff. Like you said, like this is low. Go for the Motu Origins. Just have at it, man. Like go for them. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Like for me, I always say I'm not a collector. I'm just somebody that has a lot of toys.
There you go.
Some of these things will go. Some of these things will go up in value. Some of them won't. Some of them will be worth, you know, nothing in a couple of years. There's no way to predict that. There's no way to kind of, you know, what you spent for something doesn't mean that it's like value and price aren't the same thing. I've said that a bunch of times before too.
Intrinsic versus external value, right? So like I have someone in my life who every single time they come over, they're like, well, how much do you think this is all worth right now? I'm like, it's worth
don't know.
a lot to me. It's worth a lot to me. And the things that are probably valuable in the market, I probably actually care about those less than the things that I care the most about.
Sure. So, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's sort of it in a nutshell. And I guess what I would present as a challenge to anybody that thinks that collecting, you know, will die with us. My challenge is do something about it. You know? Like if you think collecting is going to die with us, try to do something that changes that, you know?
But even the awareness that like
you don't have to.
What you love, what was appealing to you isn't necessarily appealing to my sons. And I never want to burden or force them onto like anything that is mine. Like, you know, my favorite toy in my collection is my favorite toy, not necessarily theirs. But what I would offer to them is, you know, choose your favorite characters to pull from my collection, whatever's your favorite thing. If you're not into, like, Tristan doesn't want to buy G.I. Joe figures, but he loves playing with mine. He wants to buy Pokemon and Jurassic Park. And I will never say like, but you gotta buy these G.I. Joes, or they're gonna die, man. Fine, it dies, but man, he gets to carry off with Jurassic Park and love his things that are dear to him, and I'd rather foster that, right? Like it can't be self fulfilling or selfish, where I'm just like, no, but you gotta make my line. It dies with me, son, unless you carry on the legacy. Like, that's so insane, man. Like, so like I don't care about stuff from the 1950s. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about Elvis or Boomer, any of that stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. It has no appeal to me. So same kind of thing.
12-inch G.I. Joes. I could care less.
Don't give it snot. Yeah. Well, I got two up there. I got my Screaming Eagles, my D-Day guy, but that's it, man.
Nothing wrong with them, but you know, they don't mean anything to me. That's exactly it. You know, like I collect the things that I like, and I try to sort of encourage, collecting. And if they want to collect things that are similar to what I collect, that's great. But I wonder if you do this too, because you mentioned Jurassic Park and Pokemon. When they go for an IP that you don't have anything from, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it's just a random thing on a peg, do you go, are you sure you want that, or maybe a Jurassic Park?
So
Because
Finn,
that's what I do.
Finn wants anything under the sun, and I have to
Yep.
costume like no. But T is a salesman. He'll be like, Dad, we could use this guy, and he'll tie it
Yeah,
in, and that makes it worse
he
for
knows
me, right?
the angles.
But what I do, because Finn loves Bakugan, and those are really like, how do you play with Bakugan with G.I. Joe? Well, the trick is I find ways to blend those in. So the Bakugan are either drones, or they're some sort of alien tech, or they're actually a living energy source. Like we find, and Pokemon actually have been really fun because they're like familiar. So, and when you play with Mythic Legions, Pokemon are everywhere with Mythic Legions because we're in a forest. So I'm like, oh man, my brain easily wraps around a bunch, and because they're smaller too. I'm like, yeah, all these things are like magical creatures in the forest, of course. And Finn loves Totoro and Studio Ghibli, so we bring the forest sprites, and Totoro shows up because I'm like, yeah, we're in a forest, man. It's filled with magical creatures. This is easy. So I help encourage their toys in and find ways to justify them blending in. When it's some random offshoot that I'm just like, you just want to buy something to buy it, that's a no every time. I'm like, no, man, like save your money. But no, what they love, I always try to recognize and not put my own influence into it. Like, not that I'm that awesome or anything, but yes, if they have a thing, then I try to steer them towards their thing. I'm like, do you really want Beyblades? Because you like Bakugan, you know what I mean? Or go buy a G.I. Joe instead. But no, that's, and it's incorporating their stuff into how we play together too. So
yeah, for me, with two girls and a son who I hope wants to collect IPs that I like, but we'll see. But with my two girls, it's different, right? Like it's whatever line of dolls or whatever, but it's like, oh, we want to get another different random blind bag thing. I'm like,
oh no,
scale doesn't fit, the piece doesn't fit. Like you don't have anything at home like that.
Yeah.
Why not get this thing that's similar to what you have, and then you can play with them together? Like it just, that's what drives me nuts. But when they're like, same as with you, it sounds like when it's a piece that fits what they already have, I'm like, yep, I love it. Let's buy it and try to explain why we bought it to Mom when we get home.
That's awesome.
Taylor's got a good one here. Kids can touch anything but my Buzz Lightyear. My grandma fought off people to get me the last Buzz for Christmas 1996. If the kid wants it, fight me like my nan did.
That's awesome.
I bet everybody's got one or two pieces like that. I have a couple vintage Snake Eyes that are just that they're on the top shelf. They're not coming down.
No.
I got a few vintage Joes, but I gotta sell those vintage Joes because if I don't play with it, it's probably worth more to somebody else than it is to me.
That's where I'm at, man. When I can buy stuff that I've sold some old stuff to buy the next Mythic Legions wave. You know what I mean? Like that's where I'm at too. Like I have trays of classic Joes preserved. I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't care about any of these because I take them all apart and they're all kit bashed. Like, what am I doing? So it's just the burden of putting on eBay. That's the only thing that's slowing me down. Is like, oh, this is so laborious. So, but yeah, same boat, man.
And I mean that's the thing too for me. I just don't like eBay. So I sell stuff either locally or like through Facebook groups, and then it takes time. You get sort of picky collectors that are like, is there an elbow crack? And I'm like, the picture, I didn't look. I don't care. Look at the picture. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I mean, I don't know. I genuinely try to price my stuff pretty reasonably because, like I said, I would rather somebody else have it in their collection and absolutely love it than it just sit somewhere collecting dust. So
same boat, man.
But that's how I feel about all my toys, right? Because they're toys, they're not collectibles, and that's why the kids play with them and we have fun. So.
I am absolutely stealing that mantra now. It's like, I'm not a collector. I just have a lot of toys. Because that's it. I'm not collecting this stuff for a cost or completion. I'm just world building. So like, yeah, I've got it. That's good. I'm stealing that one.
Go for it, man. My two are, I can't have all the things, and I'm not a collector. I just have a ton of toys. Those
my
are the
phrase.
two sort of things that I kind of live by. I can't have all the things as a newer one because now we're getting so many
so
things
much
up that are just so awesome. That you've got to draw the line somewhere. I don't want to be in that spot where I'm like broke and destitute, where I'm having to like burn toys to stay warm. So,
or you're just piling things on. You're like, I haven't even appreciated what I had. Like, what is that over there? Oh my gosh, I haven't seen those in years. Like that's kind of where I'm like, suddenly I'm like, whoa, let's slow down here. And like, I can keep, either I'm purging everything and starting over, or I need to stop. Like, so that's been a refocus for me recently. So
it's, I mean, but it's hard. It's hard. It's admittedly hard because there's so much cool stuff.
Just stored in my kids' room. These are yours now.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There have been purchases that was how they come.
That's great.
It's like, oh, these Bluey toys are amazing. Don't you guys want these?
Yeah, Bluey's so good. Yes.
AI Collectibles says, good afternoon, gentlemen. And on that note, we're wrapping it up. AI right on time. Good to have you though, buddy. That's all I got. Dom, is there anything you wanted to shout out or plug? You got a show coming up Thursday?
So yeah, next Thursday, I think we're actually doing like our mid-year, like top 10, where we're at right now,
Nice.
So I can't remember all the crap I bought this year. And like this, for example, I'm like, oh, I really like this. Wait, no, this is 10 years old. I gotta find and then I was like, oh, the Gamora, and he came out this year, right? And I had to go Google, like, is this 2023? Is this 2022? So like, yeah, next week we'll be doing that. The battles video though is super fun. I put a lot of work into it, and like to test it, I put it in front of my wife. I was like, just watch the first minute, and if you're not interested in this, then I'm not posting this video. And she was like, you've gotten way better at your editing skills. I'm like, there we go. And I hit publish. So that was she's not nerdy barely at all. So that was a test. So I put a lot of work into it. If you want to check those out, and they're super fun. I love playing those games out back. Like, it's so fun. So, and
I've done a terrible job. I completely forgot to put the links in the description, but if you're watching this on replay, it will be there. So the link for Dom's channel will be down below.
I had 8 guests on this last Thursday, and I didn't put a single link in my description. I was like, oh, listen, I'm an amateur. This is my first show. I was like, oh, I screwed all these guys over. So I went back and put them in later too.
Some weeks I'm on it and I've got the thumbnail and I've got the whole description. And then some, like today, I was like, I should probably post a link. It was like 1 in the afternoon. I was like, I should probably post that I'm doing this. So that somebody knows that it's happening. Man, I'm just doing it for fun. You're the same way, right? We're just doing this because it's fun. We are not professionals, folks. But check out Dom's channel. Thank you for joining us if you're in the chat or if you're watching live. Thank you for checking it out on replay as well if you're checking it out there. I've got so many things to unbox. I've got so many toys to open. The problem for me is going to be like finding the time to do videos. I may even open toys without hitting a record button and actually recording it. I know.
And enjoy the moment of opening your own toys to your own satisfaction.
Hard to believe. It's hard to believe. I'm just looking at all this, like those worst ones I might open just because they're kind of different, they're kind of fun. The G.I. Joes, you know what? I think I'm just going to enjoy opening that wave of G.I. Joes because some of those are really, really cool ones. Yeah. Bazooka especially is a figure that I'm really, really excited about. The Ewoks. So I now have Wicket and Paplu. I was waiting on Paplu to open Wicket, so I guess I should probably do an unboxing video for both of them. But it's been an absolute pleasure having everybody here. Like I said, if you enjoyed the video, please please subscribe. Taylor, I don't know how people stumble upon my channel.
It's awesome. No, it's
but I'm glad you did. He says, like, you got a sub, great channel to stumble upon.
It is.
Unfortunately, I'm from the UK, so can't stay. Fair enough. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you were here at all. And, thank you for stumbling on the channel. Thank you for subscribing.
Adam, thank you for having me on, man. I've been itching to come on here a long time. I know I'm not the best follower of your channel, but every sub, I really like all your content too. So keep it up, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's same thing about your channel. It's some of the world building stuff, because I'm not doing it I'm some you guys get pretty deep in the weeds sometimes.
Sure.
But it's still fascinating to me. I mean, you talked about your episode on Thursday. I think you had 9 guests.
It was a lot, yeah.
It was full, like it was.
Yeah.
It kept getting smaller.
A lot of squares
kept getting smaller.
I had to crack open my DM, my old Dungeon Master skills. Like, okay, how do we juggle through all these players here? So yeah, that was whew.
Ton of fun though. If you guys are into world building or interested at all in world building, Dom's channel is a great place to sort of see the faces of the like Instagram profiles and things that you see. Those guys, man, super talented.
Yeah, really talented folks.
Time that those guys put into that is unbelievable. Yeah, really here I am like, oh yeah, I got all my pre-orders in and I sit here until they show up and then I like open them and then I put them on a shelf. These guys are like actively filling
living rooms up. Yeah,
it's crazy. And I can barely paint some styrofoam to make it look like bricks. So anyway. But it's been a ton of fun, Dom.
Yeah,
Thank you. We'll definitely have you again. Awesome. Maybe next time we'll even convince Joe that it's worth his time to join us. No, I'm just giving Joe a hard time. He was busy with family stuff, which is what we should probably be doing.
He's a busy guy, yeah.
Absolutely. Until next time, everybody. Thanks, Dom.
Thanks,
everybody. Bye-bye.